This is the next lesson in our series on recapping decimal numbers. Today we're going to be adding decimal numbers, and we're going to use the column addition method. This is a recap lesson. We've done this before, so if you are actually quite happy with decimal numbers and you really are quite happy with adding them using column addition, then you can look at the sheet which we're going to do at the end of this recap unit and get started on that as well. Either way, I would like you to do these questions just to show us and yourself that you're not going to fall for the little traps and tricks that you can end up sort of falling into when you do decimals. So, on the left is the sheet that I made for you. A load of questions, you just need to solve them. Now, I wouldn't do them straight on that sheet, at least not without some sort of working. So what I've made for you is a sheet on the right. It's an optional sheet. You can use that. It's like a frame for doing the column addition on. Now, if you're happy just to do that column addition straight onto a piece of paper or straight into your book, then that is brilliant. That's fine. This is an option that you can use if you are finding laying it out tricky. And actually, laying out is the whole problem here. Once the laying it out's done, if that's quite good grammar, then the rest of it becomes reasonably easy. So you can use the sheet on the left to write your answers on if you want to, but what I'd actually probably do if I was you would just have a page of column additions, and that's what I'd hand in, either drawn straight into your book or a few of this sheet that I've done on the right here. So let's practice some of them. I've got 4 examples here that I think show 4 of the things that you might trip up on while you're doing this. So let's have a nice purple pen. Okay. So the first question here. Both of these are 3-digit numbers, as in they're numbers made up of 3 digits. But we need to look very carefully where the decimal point is. If we just gaily fill those numbers in, starting from the left, and go, oh, all right, starting from the right, 5, 7, 3, 4, 2, 7, we just fill it in like that, we're going to get the wrong answer. Because that first number is not 3 ones, 7 tenths, and 5 hundredths. It's 3 tens, 7 ones, 5 tenths. So, let's rub this out because we know it's wrong. And let's try again. The decimal point, we line up from the decimal point. So, to the right of the decimal point was a 5. To the left was a 7 and a 3. The other one was a 4 on one side of it and a 2 and a 7 on the other. Now, what I would tend to do here is just fill in these gaps with placeholder zeros. We don't need to write them, but they kind of are always there, so it doesn't hurt to have them there. And especially if you're writing this out by hand and you haven't got a grid, just writing those placeholder zeros in so that both numbers have got something in every column that you're using really might make it easier. Once we've got to that stage, all the hard work's actually done. Now we just have to add up the columns like we would in normal column addition. 0 add 7 is 7. 5 add 2, 5, 6, 7 is 7. 7 add 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 1 goes there, 1 goes in our carrying row. Looks like an 11 diagonally. And then finally 3 add a 0, add 1 is 4. We have no hundreds column, we don't need to add it. Our answer is 41.77. Okay? Rub that one out. You can always rewind this video if you want to look at that one again. Next one. Next one, all the digits line up. It's got 2 decimal places and a ones column, but I've just got a gap in it. Now what I've seen some people do here is 4.05, they'll write that and they'll try and add that up. But that's not what this is. To the right of the decimal point is this 0 here. So we need to make sure that when we write that number in, we literally write 4.05. Now I don't need to fill any other zeros in because there are no gaps in columns that I'm actually using. At the moment I'm not using the hundreds and the tens columns. So 5 add 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. 0 add 1 is 1. 4 add 2 is 6. 6.18. Okay, if you want to recap that one, rewind the video. If you want to know why it's called rewinding, ask your parents what a VHS video is, or a cassette tape. 8, 5, 3. So this one lines up nicely. Again, all the decimal places match naturally, so I haven't got to go in and put any extra zeros in. 8, add 3, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 2 of those to bring up to 8, and 1 more brings it up to 11. So it's not 11 stuck in this box. That won't work. It's 1 in that box, 1 in that box. Now the next one, 6, add 5, add 1. Well, 5 add 1 makes 6, that gives me 2 6s, 2 6s are 12. The 1 carries to there, and the 2 goes in there. It's like a 12 diagonally. Now next, 6, add 2, add 1, 6, 7, 8, 9. My answer is 9.21. Okay. Now the final question should be easier, but actually it's the one that's most likely to trip people up for some reason, especially if they're using a frame like this. 25.6. Notice that having had a few questions where there was 2 decimal places and 1 integer number, I've now got one integer digit. I've now got 2 integers, 2 whole number digits, and only 1 decimal place. 25.6, 42.5. Now, there's nothing in the hundreds column. What people have got a nasty habit of doing is going 5 add 6 is 11 and then writing it like that. That is not right. There is nothing in our hundreds column. We can't use that hundreds column. You're never going to get hundredths when you're adding up tenths. That's not how it works. You could get ones, but you're never going to go to the right. We cannot use that column. You need to remember 6 add 5 is 11. That is 11 tenths is 1 whole 1 and 1 tenth. Okay? The 11ness is there. It's there diagonally like that. Do not fall into the trap of, oh look, there's an empty hundredths column. I'll stick my second 1 digit in there because it looks a little bit like an 11. That happens all the time when people are adding these in their head. They'll go something 0.6 add something 0.5 is something 0.11. It's not. It's a whole 1 and an extra 1. Once you've got past that trick, once that kind of stumbling block, the rest becomes easy. 5 add 2 add 1. 5, 6, 7, 8. And 2 add 4 is 6. 68.1. So, if we look back to the page with the questions, those are the types of things that you might come up against. So there's a few questions where there's only 1 decimal place, but it carries. So be careful that you don't go into the hundreds column and just write it as a 2-digit number to the left, to the right of the decimal place. There's some where the decimal point doesn't line up easily. There are some that don't have decimals at all, and you need to be careful that you line them up properly. there are some that carry into the hundreds column, some that carry into the hundreds column and have different numbers of decimal places. So be very careful when you go through these. In fact, I don't think it would hurt for everyone to have a go at this. You might just be quicker. What I will do is show you what the next piece of decimal work is. Now this will be a separate lesson, but I said at the beginning, if you think this is going to be easy and you're going to knock through this quite quickly, we are going to work on this. I don't think I'm going to go through it in too much detail today because it will be another lesson probably next week. I'll probably use it as the kind of finishing thing, but it's quite a long piece of work, so you might want to get started now. So it starts off with estimate how many numbers there are in this grid, then check to count. That means estimate. That means look at it and think, oh, that looks a bit like. When you then count to check, let's face it, you're not going to count every single one. That's an array. You can probably use a little trick to work out how many that is. Find a number that lies between these two numbers, something between 8 and 9. Well, it's bigger than 8, it's smaller than 9, it's going to be 8, and then there's going to be some fraction after it, but it's all in decimals. Write the yellow numbers in order. That's an ordering fraction question. That's not too bad. Follow the trail, start at 9.7, move down or across, not diagonally. Notice how 9.7 is in dark purple to help you find it. The numbers must get bigger each time. What number do you finish on? So there's only one trail, I think, that starts there and gets bigger every time. Where does it end up? Then you have to choose 3 of the blue numbers and just write them out in an expanded form, a bit like we did last lesson. Take the green numbers and order them from largest to smallest. That's not that different to the yellow numbers, you're just doing it the other way around. Notice this was smallest to largest, and this is largest to smallest, do not get mixed up there. How many blue numbers have a 9 as their 10th digit? Again, that's a bit like last lesson. How many pink numbers are there? Now, you can work that out, but you don't have to count all the pink ones. If you know how many there are altogether, you can work out how many pink ones there are by doing something much quicker than counting the pink ones. Round the yellow digit to the nearest 10. We probably will read cap rounding between now and the end of the unit, but again, if you think you can already do it, you can have a go at that one. If I round the yellow numbers to the nearest whole number, which ones have an answer of 6 again, that's some more rounding. And then there's some more rounding there. And then there's just a little puzzle to do at the end there. Now, we will use this at the end of this recap as a kind of assessment. If you want to get started on it now and perhaps do some of the ones that we have already covered, then that is perfectly fine. Today's lesson that I'll want to see handed in on 2 days' time. What day is it today? Thursday, so Friday, so Monday. This will be due at 8 o'clock on Monday. This sheet is the sheet that I want to see in. Again, you can choose to use or to not use copies of this. That's up to you, and it depends on whether you've got a printer. But I do want to see this done probably as a page of column additions somewhere that you take a photograph of. As always, if there are any questions, just ask one of us.